Hi guys, good to be here. Thank you all for coming. I'm Daniel, this is Luis. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. I've been a software developer for around 7 years, working properly, professionally. I'm currently a mobile developer at Cineplex. I'm also was able to get my blog sponsored by the Planet Xamarin community. So now I can call myself a Planet Xamarin community author. So I'm also a Xamarin certified developer by Xamarin University. I've been developing with Xamarin for about 2 years now. This is my Twitter account at Daniel Kauser for the Connect.
I'm Luis. I have over 11 years of professional experience developing. Currently, I'm working as a mobile developer at Cineplex. I started as a game developer with Unity 3D like 5 years ago. I developed like 15 games or something like that. AR, VR for cardboard, GVR, and Oculus Rift. Now I'm a certified Xamarin developer, and I have 5 years experience as a mobile developer since I started with Unity. Before, I was working with C++, OpenGL, doing games with that. You can follow me on Twitter if you want. Mm-hmm. I don't post too much.
So our idea here today is to share our experience building a social login with Xamarin Forms. We're gonna discuss a little bit about the social network players that we have, like Facebook, Google, Twitter, and others. We're gonna present our opinion on why every app that is going to be published in the store should have a social login network with it. And after doing some research and trying to implement the best way that we could find, we're gonna discuss all the options we've been through, and we're gonna talk here on the ones we picked that we thought were the best ones. Yeah.
So the big ones, the big players in the social logging are Facebook, Google, Twitter, and in China, Sina Web. This is very this has as much users as Twitter mm-hmm. in China. Okay, so if you are going to launch your app in China, you have to support this one. It's the big one there. It's like the Facebook for China. Mm-hmm. Okay, and all of them support a native SDK, and we also have the same SDK in C# for each platform on Android and iOS.
Facebook alone has today over 2 billion active users. So that's a huge amount of people. And yeah, it's a lot. So why use social network login in our apps? We find that it's a simpler way to get that user as a proper user, not just a guy downloading apps and testing stuff out, but you're actually gonna get the guy to come a second time to your app, you know. So this login experience is actually the first experience that a user will have with your app. So you have to make it as simple as possible, right? You want him to click a couple of buttons and ready to go, ready to use, signed up and ready to start using your app, right? So it needs an easy flow, easy login flow for the user. We want to simplify that as much as we can, and allow that user to share his activities in your app, in his preferred social network, share something in Facebook or Twitter, you know. So yeah, which option to use, right? We've been discussing that. When I first started searching this topic out, I actually noticed that there's a lot of people and tutorials in the internet that use Xamarin Auth. It's a NuGet available for anyone who wants to download it. It has a couple of features that allows you to implement the social login with Facebook and Google. But it's not very, it's not the native flow, let's put it this way. With Facebook login, you basically pop up a web view for the user, where the user will have to type its credentials and then log in, allow your app to sign up with his account, right? So, well, you don't want the user. I don't remember my Facebook account all the time. I had to reset it a couple of times actually when I changed browsers, you know. So if you ask actually for the credentials for every user that's going to use your app, that you might lose a couple of users, or you might lose users to it. You know, you're complicating the flow of the login.
Yeah, so this is when I got to work with the Facebook SDK. I have worked with this for Unity. It uses the native flow. But looking for us on Xamarin, there are implementations for Facebook and Google SDKs in C#. So you just have to implement them in your platform-specific project, and then just use them with an interface on your Xamarin Forms. Okay, so the Facebook SDK is exactly the same as the one for each platform. For example, for Android, we have the Java Facebook SDK that you can use in your native Android Studio app. And here you have exactly the same calls, exactly the same method. So if you have any trouble, you just go to the documentation in Java and look, because it looks very much like C#, the syntax. There is no trouble to translate from Java to C#, and anything you want to do, you do it there. Mm-hmm. Okay, same thing for iOS. And with Google SDK, Daniel implemented the SDK. We found a lot of trouble to do it. It's not straightforward. And in the end, we had to use the Google services for Android and the Google iOS SDK for iOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, these two SDKs are the SDKs that Google and Facebook made available for Android and iOS developers, right? So if you go to their Google SDK, like Luis said, if you go to the Google Developer Central, you see like step-by-step how to implement this, right? But again, it's in Java and iOS, but it's the same. If you just translate the syntax to C#, then you're good to go, right? So how does it work? Who maintains these SDKs? What is going on in there? So as we said, they are the SDKs available for Android and iOS. What happens is Xamarin maintains the NuGet packages for these guys, and they bind. There's a way with Xamarin that you can actually bind the native libraries of each platform and make them available for you in Xamarin in C# code. So what they do is they bind these libraries for you and make it available on NuGet. So you just download them, start using, configure and start using, right? So Luis will present how he implemented the Facebook app. So it's demo time. So how should I do it?
Just like
Last session when I demoed, every time I launched the app, second time, everything would crash. So I hope they have better luck than me.
So we want to show in your phone first, and then
Not the emulator first. So we show how it works without the app.
okay, so you can just hook it in and put it there.
So we have the share code here for summary forms. We have our service for the Facebook.
So yeah, we thought that we could make it the best way possible is using MVVM. So we tried as hard as we could to keep the structure of MVVM working, right?
Yes, this is like typical service-oriented application.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our implementation for our interface for the Facebook Manager. In this case, we are only exposing logging. Let me
Control plus maybe.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir.
Down in the bottom corner there. Yes, yeah.
Now let me try this. Okay, we try to expose only logging and logout, but you can expose sharing, logging with sharing permissions and reading permissions, and yeah, basically sharing and logging logout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything that the SDK provides, you can actually implement.
Exactly.
We'll just expose this via this interface and implement it on the target platform, right?
And here we have our manager. Okay, we just like the same example in Java, or in this case, we translate it to C#, and we just get the instance for Facebook Manager and implement the login. In this case, Facebook works with a callback method, like you just call your login and send a method that you want to be called when it's finished. So that this is the one call here. On login complete, it's an action of Facebook user. In this case, we implemented it with a string in the response with two parameters, the Facebook user and the string. The string will be a message from the server, if it's a success, an error, anything. And we have the Facebook user after the call. So once the call is done, like we do here,
It's in the callback.
we want the public profile and the email. So we do the login manager. Sorry. Yeah, we call the instance with the login manager with read permissions for the profile, and then when what is the
Here, Facebook callback.
Control ML.
Yeah.
So when we get a success, we just create a new user with all the parameters we got, and then execute the callback here at the end. On login complete, we invoke, and this guy here is in our share code,
The view model.
the view model. We call, what is it here?
It's down there.
Yes, the constructor.
We set up the commands in the
Commands,
constructor.
and here it is. So we call the login in our interface.
Yep.
With our action, which is this one, where we will receive the Facebook user and a message.
Yeah. And when the target platform code is done, it's just invoke this action back to our shared code and then it's yeah, it was a good way to solve how when the SDK is done, and it was a good way to call our Xamarin Forms code again to handle what we're gonna do after we're done, right?
So I will show how it looks.
Oh no, this way.
So the Facebook, the SDK gives you back, or their API returns just like a JSON object. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, yeah. All of that crazy stuff that we were doing, we were like getting the JSON back and cracking it up into our model user class, and then sending it back to the forms.
Okay.
We couldn't use Newtonsoft JSON because it's different from
It's coming as a NS in iOS NS object, and in Android it comes like a
Java
object,
line, right?
Something like the native JavaScript,
so it's a native
JSON.
Yeah.
So
native that they return the target objects of the platforms.
Because it's just a wrapper on top of it.
exactly.
Yeah. So
If you want
actually,
platform specific, you use the object that it sends back. Like for your share code, you can create your object and parse it and send it back and use whatever you want from there. For the binding, for example, you see here in the views. We bind directly you see this is from the Facebook. What is it? Yeah, Facebook user, the picture.
Right.
Yeah. We're binding up
There is an email, the first name, you see?
Yeah.
So we're binding there directly from the Facebook user that we get as a return from.
So you parse it, you put it all on the Facebook user,
Exactly.
and then you expose that on your
Exactly.
Nice.
Actually, this was one the example I did to do the step-by-step in the blog I post. Luis is working on a more neat project to use Facebook to share the most code we can, right?
I'm trying to create exactly like a one-to-one mapping from the Unity SDK for Facebook to Xamarin Forms.
Because Unity has a more fleshed out.
It exposes much more things.
Right. Nice.
So this is with the emulator. If we are not, if we don't have the Facebook app, the SDK will pop up web view, but it comes from the SDK itself. So it's secure in the sense that I'm not opening a random web view, and it looks like the Facebook actual UI. Yes.
So if you have the Facebook app on your phone, it would.
It will,
plugged in.
yes, that's what I'm going to show now.
It would open the Facebook app on your phone, and actually on the simulator, I'm not logged in the browser. But if I was logged in the browser, it would pop up this view, but with only one button for me to accept the Facebook. Right. So right now, this is like I just bought the phone. I'm not logged in anything, so this will pop up for your user, right?
So Daniel, can you come here? In your phone.
I just have to go to the developer's account and remove.
Yeah, it's okay.
So.
So when we log in here,
Cancel.
Right, yeah. So it logs you automatically because
Okay, there's a
pop-up.
Okay. So in this case, I'm already allowed the app to my Facebook account. So this show the first example. So in this case, I already accepted Facebook, my app on my Facebook profile. So actually what it happens, it doesn't even like ask for permission. Just hit Facebook login, I get your information, and you're all set, yeah? So you actually have all of the information you need, and you don't have to keep asking for access to the user, yeah?
So this is if you don't have permissions yet. So it will ask you with the native from the app.
Will pop up
This is
the
the UI from the SDK. Just continue. And if you haven't given permission, it will ask you, do you want to give permission to this app? And then it downloads.
Yeah, let me try to remove the access of Facebook to my profile real fast, so I can show you guys how it is. Oh, you did? Yeah. Everybody could see? Okay, cool. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll just do it real fast. 1 second, guys.
So the SDK will launch like another activity
Yes.
in modal form, and then just give you the
Exactly.
accept permissions. For
And that's how the callbacks work. We just set up the code in our target platform, and we have the callbacks there, and whenever an action is done by the SDK, they will call that piece of code of ours.
Right.
And then we can handle whatever we need there.
Awesome.
Okay, how did you do that here? The access. There, right? Nice. Should be here, right? Show all maybe. Show all. There it is.
I think you have it on.
I think that's all. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay, so this is it. So I just removed the permission I had in my Facebook account. It should pop up the same.
I told you the other one.
It's caching somewhere. Something's caching.
Close the app first. It should be there.
Nice.
This one, authentication.
There you go.
There.
There you go.
Nice.
So that's it, and I'll allow it to access my profile information. There we go. When we log out, plug in again, all good. Cool. So that is for the Google. I will just as
Check I think you were
yeah, just so you guys believe us that the code is working. I will run this.
Switch to iOS. I'm running on iOS.
Oh, yeah, okay. So the iOS, we don't have any. So iOSs have, I would need a proper.
That was the droid.
Oh, yeah.
Just move the window there again.
So for the iOS, we would actually.
Change it to simulator first.
Yeah.
Which,
Oh, get it,
which simulator?
Simulator here.
I can't see properly.
The third one.
Wait,
The third
this one? The third one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Click there. iPhone X.
Which
Is the
one do you
that
have
is
open here?
iPhone X. Move the window there. Move the window there.
Hang on, let me just. iPhone X, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Is it there?
Yeah, the last one.
That's one. Okay. Good. So,
We're making viewers there.
we have a Mac laptop back here with a team viewer open.
I'm laughing because we used to do a lot of that.
Okay, here you go. Let's wait for it.
While we're waiting for this, quick show of hands, who's working with Xamarin currently, like day to day? Interesting. Okay. Who's planning on looking at Xamarin? Okay. My recommendation after using this platform for 3 years is get yourself a Mac.
Yeah.
Get yourself a Mac and a Parallels license. Install Windows on Parallels, so you have both sets of tools available, and your life will be a lot easier. And this is coming from like a I don't like Apple point of view, so it kind of pains me to say that. I don't like them because of that notch right there. That's one of the reasons, because they just cram things down your throat whether you like it or not.
No,
What's that? It's not loading?
Yeah, the Mac is super slow.
the connection is
Connection's
lost.
I will take the word for it, guys. You want to move on?
Yeah, well, it works. I have
Yeah.
a GIF of it working.
There you go.
Animated GIF. Yeah. Okay, so
This is what happens when you try and demo complex things, right? Always.
okay, so let's jump to the Google one then. Let's build over here so I can cancel it. Oh. Let's switch to your project. So for the iOS, iOS always require a sign-in certificate. So you have to actually, to deploy to a real device, you have to have your developer account, and you have to set everything up with Apple before you actually can deploy your app to a real device, right? So we're kind of hostages of simulator right now. Okay, so I'm gonna open the project for the Google sign in.
Switch this on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna demo the one I have right over here right now. Cool. So there we go. Google login. The same flow, yeah. I've already accepted my app in my Google account previously. So I will uninstall it. So Google works different from Facebook, actually. So if you remove this guy from here, uninstall, I will have to ask for permission again.
You can just clear the data.
Yeah,
Not that you're really in
and
this.
install it. It's true.
I don't know. Oh, I have it here. I have it here, but
Do you know if the SDKs use the iOS key store?
So on iOS, Google, you mean, or Facebook?
I mean, just like talking about
So
either on iOS.
this configuration we did, it's
Yeah.
all on debug mode.
Okay.
It's not something you're gonna, well, the configuration we did is not, something else is required to actually publish it as a app on the stores.
Right. Oh, I mean the key store, like yeah, the token is the token saved in the iOS key store. Because I know with yeah, Xamarin has an interface for that, and then also I know the Azure mobile SDK also saves its token there too. I'm wondering if
so you can have access to the APIs again later.
Yeah, basically it saves the auth token or the refresh token. I can't remember.
Yeah. For
Facebook,
for Facebook or iOS, you can require like from the native app, from web view, or from the key store. Right? From whatever account are saved on your device that matches Facebook.
I see.
So we retrieve from there. I guess that's useful when you're offline, so you have a valid account store on your keychain.
Right.
But I didn't test it. So because you need a real device and install everything there.
Right.
But I know that the call for login has 3 options, which is native, web view, and keychain.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so it's building. Let's watch it. So I'll just go through the code right now and explain what I did there. So Google also works with callbacks like Facebook does, which is pretty nice. So the setup for so actually I was just mentioning here, this configuration we did is all for debug. So we actually have to add to the developer's account on Facebook and Google the hash of our machines, so it's identified and assures that it's a secure one. So to actually publish it in the store, you have to get the hash keys of your Mono Droid and Mono iOS. So iOS is a little different. Actually, you need to have a sign-in certificate. And you have to ask for key sharing on the entitlements. So that's a whole other configuration with the Apple developers account that you have to do. But it's the same trouble that any like native app, like Objective-C and Java app built will go through. So that's how the SDKs work. So here on the shared code for Xamarin Forms, I have the same structure that we saw for the Facebook example. We have an interface that is implemented on each of the native platforms. It's a Google Manager class. So this again is the same class that the SDKs have the examples of the SDKs have to implement. So you have to have an interface, Google Manager, that will actually implement you will be obligated to implement the callbacks. So here we have the both methods that our Google interface implements, and here we have the on-auth completed method for the SDK. We're working with actions, right? So right here, I'm getting, if the result is successful, we'll just get the information from the SDK and send it back to our shared code base.
On iOS and Android, the Google user is different. It's a different object, so you cannot share the same. That's why we have to create an object in the shared project and map every property to the one we have in the
Because you're using two different libraries, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, two
So
different.
even the name is different.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's a Google signing account, and you get the signing account in the result.
Right.
In iOS, it's different.
So yeah, here on the Android project, we do have the callbacks, but on iOS they're all delegates, like any other app developed in C. We're actually have to implement these delegates by the SDK, and then we will have access to dismissing the Google view here.
Right.
Right.
You have to dismiss it.
Yeah.
Well,
And then you have to present the controller
Right.
also that the
So
SDK has.
it doesn't do it for you. You actually have to hook in.
Yeah,
and
you have
make
to
sure
hook in. Mhm.
Okay.
Well, you might want to do something before popping up. I don't know.
Right.
You can do. So let's see if it actually
Yeah, it
did.
check. Right, sorry.
Very good. All awesome. See, this is we're using Google services for this guy on Android. That is the native flow for my Google account logged in my Android device. So Android is by Google. So every Android device actually has, basically every Android user has a Google account. So whenever this guy pops up, this view will show. And again, if you don't have eventually the Google app in your device, it will pop up view. Well, it will pop up the browser, not a web view. Google has changed their rules for logging, and they do not accept web views as a way of logging into Google accounts. So actually, if you try to call the authentication with a web view, it will pop up 403 not authorized. So yeah, you have to use their SDKs or open the browser in the app and deep link the results of that browser when it goes back to your app. So that's a lot of configuration, a lot of headache. Just use the SDK and you're good to go.
Nice.
I will accept and log in. Yeah, so right now, this was the second demo with the Google account. So we've come to a conclusion that this is the best native way to implement these native flows for social authentication. I do have a blog called Causer Exception, where I've posted the how-to and baby steps to configuring your Xamarin app to log in with Facebook, the way we did. And I'm working on the second post to give again the baby steps to do the login with Google accounts. So I hope that helps everybody. So I guess this is it, right?
Yeah, I have a Git repo with the code for Facebook. I will add more. I will expose more methods like sharing, login with sharing credentials. So you can share from your app. You will be able to share images, tags, links onto your wall in Facebook or to other friends. Even get your list of friends to send something to them. It will even enable the messenger so you can chat inside your app using Facebook SDK. I need to work on that and also implement the same on Google and maybe wrap both of them into one single social package. So you can plug in your phones and work with it with minimal configuration, because you will need to add some things to your main activity and your app delegate, but everything else will be there. Mm-hmm. All the managers will be there on each platform. and also for Google, then with Twitter, and probably with Sina for China, and have it like a xamarin.forms.social, a new package that you could download in the future, and let's see how it goes.
Awesome. So these are the resources we have used for this presentation. The post, this is like filtered by category in the blog. So anything we do with social login is going to be under there. So there in here, there's actually more resources pointing to Facebook developer account, website, and two tutorials that we use to build these samples, right? These are the resources we took to talk a little bit about the amount of people that is using social media and those things. So yeah, I would like to thank BSI Labs and Brightling for hosting us here tonight. It has been awesome working with it, and it's even cooler to be able to share with you guys. I hope this will help you out making awesome labs. All right.
I've been harassing you guys with questions. I've got more.
No, actually, yeah. If anybody has questions, please.
I have one.
Shoot.
So if this is a way to do it, why you don't examine guys already create a library for it or libraries for it?
So there is, well, actually there is a lot of NuGet libraries out there.
There is one from Xamarin that has not been dated in 2 years.
Yeah.
And the reason is because the Google and Facebook, which are independent companies from Xamarin, they change their SDKs all the time. So someday they decide to take out some functionality from the SDK. So you have to maintain your own package, right? To make it compatible with that. So instead of having that trouble every time they update their SDK, just expose the SDKs as they are for each platform and let the developer handle that.
Deal with it. Yep.
Because if you have a package that is using something and then it breaks, then you have, who's to blame? You have to blame Xamarin for that. So, and they haven't fixed that, so you have to wait for them. No, it's better if you put your own thing.
Yeah, for example, when we were developing the Facebook example, we got what, the version 6.27?
No, 4.26. And
that had a known issue with the Facebook SDK. Not the binding, not the Xamarin part, but with the Facebook SDK for Android, they had a known issue and it was booming. Like their forums were going crazy with people complaining about it. So we were having the issue. We were like, oh my God, it's not working. Why? And then we ended up in the developers forum for Facebook and we saw that they were having issues. So we actually downgraded from the 26 to the 25 and it worked perfectly. And then Facebook launched a new version. 3 days later, they launched a new version of the SDK. Then Xamarin updated their bindings and then it worked again.
Yes.
So yeah.
So that's why there is no like global package. Like the one I want to do, I know it will break if I don't maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Someday they will remove some method or add a new one or change one. So I will need to update that.
Mm-hmm.
For people that want the cross-platform implementation. Same thing in Unity, they have their SDK, but Facebook itself, they maintain that. But they used to maintain a Xamarin Forms SDK, but they abandoned it like 3 years ago, I don't know. And
I guess Xamarin as a company, if they wanted to maintain this type of libraries, it would consume too much of them. So they are actually relying on the community for a lot of these libraries, right? So there's a lot of libraries under the .NET Foundation. And there's actually, I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and they were like mentioning that they want like a call for the community to like bring more solutions like that. Like this one
for every 10 nugget packages that find for forms, only 2 or 3 work.
Mm-hmm.
All other are super outdated, like from 2 or 3 years ago, no maintenance.
Maybe something that someone created just to play with it, you know, change the idea, just left it there.
There's a maintenance nightmare there, right?
Yeah.
So I also saw that you guys have implementation in the Droid and the iOS projects, right?
Exactly.
So if the premise of using Xamarin is to use the shared code and considering the fact that you've written completely different code to handle these things, why shouldn't I use the Xamarin per platform? They have we can write Java inside Xamarin and load it from my understanding, right?
So as
So
you said,
use the native SDK.
We are
rather than
using the
Xamarin
native-
SDK,
yeah.
It's
So
using
we-
the native
but
SDK.
you're
yeah.
wrapping it in C#.
yeah, you have to
It's already
translate the
wrapped.
library
That's the
somehow.
thing.
If all your
To use
developers, if they're used to C#, then it's easier just to keep it all in C# instead of having Java libraries and then bring that in.
There's a,
So
like,
it's more of a consistency.
yeah, Lewis was saying too, like you're abstracting more and more into your code,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So like, right, for this, the purposes of demo, as you asked a question, right?
Yeah.
For the purpose of the demo, sure, there was, you had some platform specific code, but after
Because we
you-
wanted to make it as simple as possible,
Yeah.
the baby steps, yeah? So I wouldn't want to like create this whole wrap complex thing on my shared code and make it not, make it too different from the guides on the developer's tutorial, you know? So I basically have the same code in my target platform as the tutorial in the by Facebook or by Google, you know?
Yeah.
So the person looking at the code can see what we're doing and what we're like.
Yeah, and
No,
for the share project, which is the forms project, we just expose 2 methods, which is login and logout. Like I said, I will expose more on my GitHub. I like sharing and logging with sharing permissions, and that's what you should do if you want something in your shared project.
Mm-hmm.
One more question.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
There is a company, Auth0. They do have a very, I would say, popular system for authentication.
Mhm.
And they have a free version as well as paid plan. Are you guys familiar with it? I just want to know what the quality is. Does it make it easy?
So I have just overseen a couple of solutions that like give you everything in one package. Like Android has the Firebase. It gives you everything. Google, Facebook, all of the social logins you want. But I didn't go deeper into those frameworks.
It sounds like the problem is there is no company supporting a certain library and
Like
the
free,
maintenance.
you know, like a free library, not one that you.
Well, there's no money in it, so there's no incentive for them to keep maintaining it. It takes time, right?
Yeah.
So,
You actually have to take like
Like I said,
people from the community willing to you know be under a .NET Foundation license and have their code open and you know spend time coding and spend time of their lives making other people's life easier.
I'm kind of interested in the Auth0 myself, but I've given it a look, haven't really delved into it because I know they have Xamarin libraries available as well. So if that consolidates the problem, then they handle really the OAuth for you. And yeah, it might be a good choice.
I personally actually played around with Azure Active Directory.
D2C.
Yes, you see, and it was neat, but I didn't have this native feeling that
Yeah,
you guys
it doesn't have
here.
a native
It doesn't
flow,
have
you
it,
know?
but it was great. It worked right out of the gate, and it was
Yeah,
on
that for
Azure.
example will be deprecated soon. Google is not allowing anymore web use. It has to be in the browser, but that will be also deprecated. Like you cannot extract from there the tokens, the access tokens, and plug in your app and start using it from there. You have to use the SDK. Facebook, they still allow you to use the
Web
the
use,
web use,
because they are
but
using
soon
it.
they will remove it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all very interesting.
So, two-part question.
Mhm.
Facebook and Google, do they have their, from what you said, it sounds like they have their own SDKs and they want you to use their own SDKs and they don't like you doing things your own way or manual flow. Is that correct?
So actually, you can do it manually. You can open the device's browser and deep link Google in there, and then filter the callback from the browser when it closes back to your app. And then you have to add filters to your activity to know exactly the app ID, so you can call and then call your code back. So there's a lot of crazy configuration that you have to do. You can do it manually.
Yeah.
I just don't recommend it. It's just too much work, and you already have the SDK.
The SDK just sits on the API, right? So the API is still exposed. You cannot use the SDK if you want to. And I've actually found with a lot of Google's OAuth libraries, and I think you guys found this too because you use one of the unofficial libraries. The Google libraries are they are inflexible. So their flows don't always match your use case. You might have a perfectly valid OAuth use case that works with other providers, but won't work with Google's SDK because it's built in a very rigid manner. So yeah, sometimes you have to actually like remove the SDK or use a third-party component to get at some Google services because they tend to be, their SDKs tend to be a bit rigid.
That's actually a good segue into the second part of my question, because if I'm using another provider, say GitHub or LinkedIn for a while, then how well does Facebook and Google play with those SDKs? And is it possible to build an abstract service that would handle,
So yeah, so the interface we used that gets exposed to the native the target platforms, we could maybe set up a enum or something that would ask for, oh, I'm calling Google, I'm calling Facebook, you know. So there's abstractions that you can implement to make your code accept more social login options, right? I know that Twitter does have an SDK for logging in, right, on Android and iOS. I haven't looked it up to see if there's a Xamarin binding for that. But basically, all of the social, big social networks, they do provide some manner of logging into their social networks with your. I started going that road with the Google authentication because I wasn't like finding the Google services available. So I started looking for jar files for the Google services. So I was able to bind and expose a few of their methods, but between some readings and researches, I ended up just finding the binding by Xamarin.
Yeah, the Xamarin.auth library that you touched on too, that handles generic OAuth. So you can plug that into any OAuth login provider under the sun, and it works.
What was the talk about Xamarin OAuth library?
That was a specific Facebook.
Specific Facebook and Google.
Yeah,
so you can, Xamarin Auth is awesome for login. OAuth 2 and OAuth 1. You can use it and it works perfectly out of the box. But it's not, it provides, for instance, Facebook login. But it's not the native login that we saw with the SDK. Actually, what OAuth, Xamarin Auth will do, it's going to pop up a web view, and you will have to enter your credentials all the time because it's a web view, it's not the user's browser. So it doesn't have the information from the browser of the device. So all of the users signing up to your app will have to type their credentials, you know, all the time. And with actually the only example with the Google and Xamarin Auth is a deep linking the browser, and it's on Xamarin documents. It's like open there, but it's a lot of configuration. I went through with it just because I was mad and I wanted to make it work. But after I saw this SDK, I was like, oh my God, what a waste of time. Yeah, you're welcome.
With Xamarin Auth, we can also provide your own authenticator as well. I use Xamarin Auth for SAML assertions. SAML authentication.
Nice.
And so it's really flexible for what it is. They give you like the outlining, like scaffolding for like logging into a web view and such. Yeah, just provide your own authentication logic to it.
Yeah, and it's a great tool for authentication. Completely. Actually, I would recommend using it after you get all of the information from your user. I would recommend using like Xamarin Auth for signing up with your backend API or whatever service you have to sign up users with. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it gives you access to the secure store too on each device, so you can save your access token. And,
yeah, say the user account, right?
Yeah.
Information.
Yeah.
It does.
yeah, it's good.
Cool. Anyone more questions? All right.
Awesome.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you very
guys.
much.